In a federal prison in Colorado, Ray sits calmly in his cell, watching the guards as he burns a page from his Bible. Using the ashes, he sketches something cryptic on the wall. His cellmate interrupts, warning Ray about an attack planned against him in the yard the next day. But when the time comes, Ray is ready. He strikes first, taking down 2 prisoners with expert precision, fighting like a seasoned pro and leaving them severely injured. The guards quickly intervene, capturing Ray and sending him straight to solitary confinement. Despite the punishment, Ray is allowed to keep his Bible. Days turn into nights, but Ray uses the solitude wisely. He studies the guards' routines, timing their smoking breaks and memorizing the keypad lock they use. He also starts crafting small balls made of toilet paper and water, hiding them in the toilet paper roll. One day, when lunch arrives, Ray carefully removes a transparent plastic sheet from the milk carton, saving it for later. He's methodical, even asking a guard for the time and quietly counting seconds to track time himself. Meanwhile, outside the prison, a mysterious woman arrives in the parking lot. She parks her car and walks away, pressing a remote control to detonate it in a fiery explosion. The guards rush to evacuate the prisoners, but as chaos unfolds, they discover Ray is missing. The fire truck arrives to handle the flames, but it turns out Ray is on board, disguised as a firefighter. Abigail and Hush, his accomplices, triggered the explosion and are waiting for him in a getaway car. They pick up Ray and drop him off at a roadside store, giving him a coin to make a call. Ray uses the coin to dial a number and says one word, "Showtime." Moments later, police swarm in and arrest him again. Ray remains unfazed. His contact Lester is already handling everything. Back in prison, Lester reveals that he and Ray work for a government-hired company that specializes in testing prison security systems. Ray has successfully escaped from 14 prisons so far, and he explains exactly how he pulled this one off. Ray walks Lester through his strategy. He deliberately made enemies to get sent to solitary confinement, where he observed that guards left him unattended during their smoke breaks. He wrote a coded letter to his team, detailing the escape date, and used the plastic sheet from the milk carton to lift fingerprints from the keypad. By testing combinations during his alone time, he cracked the code. With the cameras rewound to hide his movements, Ray crawled through the vents to reach the fire garage just as Abigail started the fire. The warden, though irritated, has no choice but to let Ray go. Later in Los Angeles, Ray meets CIA agent Jessica. She offers him a challenging new job: escape from a secret prison for $5 million, double the usual rate. Ray agrees, though Abigail and Hush are wary of the mission's lack of details. Jessica provides a cover identity for Ray, an explosives terrorist named Portos. His prison contact will be Warden Marsh, and he's given an evacuation code. Days later in New Orleans, Abigail and Hush persuade Ray to wear a tracker, injecting it into his arm. But as Ray waits to be picked up, masked men ambush him. He's tossed, thrown into a van, and scanned for the tracker, which they promptly remove. Abigail and Hush lose his signal, just as Ray is sedated and transported to an unknown location. Ray awakens groggy in a helicopter, witnessing something horrific. Guard Drake mercilessly beats another inmate, then stabs him and tosses him out midair. When Drake notices Ray is awake, he orders his men to sedate him again. Ray wakes up in a prison unlike anything he's ever seen. The cells are plexiglass cubes suspended in the air. Guards wear black masks to conceal their identities, and a giant camera-equipped sphere monitors everything. Ray is brought before Warden Hobbs, not the contact he was promised. When Ray mentions his evacuation code, Hobbs dismisses it, claiming ignorance. During the prisoner's break, Ray observes the brutal reality of this place. Guards beat anyone who disobeys, and prisoners' jumpsuits are embedded with codes scanned at every door. Hobbs announces Ray's fake identity over the speakers, making sure everyone knows about the new guy. When a group of thugs tries to intimidate Ray, he quickly takes charge. Breaking the leader's hand and knocking him out, Ray establishes dominance. Emil, another prisoner, steps in and tries to befriend Ray, sharing his own story about working for Mannheim, a modern-day Robin Hood figure. But Ray isn't interested. Meanwhile, Hobbs reprimands Drake for killing the inmate in the helicopter, revealing that some prisoners aren't criminals. They've just crossed powerful people. It's also revealed that Hobbs has obtained a copy of the book Ray wrote about his escape methods. The rest of the day, Ray continues studying the prison's layout and observing the behavior of the inmates. One detail catches his eye: a group of Muslim prisoners who still pray, even though they can't see the sunset. Emil notices Ray's sharp observation skills and approaches him, declaring himself the go-to guy for favors. Ray doesn't waste time and tells Emil he needs to get into the isolation area. Emil, always eager to help in his chaotic way, suddenly punches Ray, sending him to the ground. Surprised, Ray retaliates, but Emil laughs it off. Frustrated, Ray fights harder, and soon the playful scuffle turns into a real brawl. Before long, guards rush in, tasering them both and dragging them to the isolation area. The isolation cells are tiny, sweltering metal boxes with blinding lights that make it nearly impossible to think, let alone move. Ray grits his teeth and endures the unbearable heat, using the time to inspect the box for anything that could aid his escape. After days of suffering, a doctor named Kyrie checks on him. Ray tries to get information, but Kyrie keeps his mouth shut. On his way out, Drake corners Kyrie, demanding to know what they talked about. Kyrie lies, which doesn't go unnoticed by Ray. Perhaps the doctor has a conscience after all. Soon, Ray and Emil are sent back to the general population. Sitting together, Ray sketches something on the table and tells Emil he needs a piece of metal. In return, he promises to help Emil escape too. Emil agrees and devises a plan. He asks to meet with Hobbs, pretending he's ready to reveal Mannheim's location. Once he gets paper to draw a map, Emil mocks Hobbs by drawing an obscene caricature instead. Furious, Hobbs orders his men to waterboard Emil, but Emil endures the torture long enough to steal a metal drain cover. Later, Emil hands the cover to Ray, who reveals his true identity and mission. Ray explains his theory. The prison is underground, and the steel rivets holding the isolation boxes have rusted from moisture in the air. Using toothpaste as a sealant and heat from the metal cover, Ray plans to make the rivets snap. To execute this, they need to get sent to isolation again. Emil takes the lead, insulting Javed's mother to start a fight. Javed's Muslim group leaps to his defense, and Ray joins the chaos, hiding some bread in his clothes before trading blows. The guards quickly arrive, subduing everyone with tasers and dragging them back to the heat boxes. Back in isolation, Ray gets to work. Using his body to block the guards' view, he heats the rivets one by one, his hands blistering and bleeding from the effort. Every time he makes too much noise, Emil covers for him by screaming in pain. Slowly but surely, Ray removes all the rivets, covering the camera with the bread to avoid detection. Once the camera is blinded, Ray knocks on the wall to signal Emil. Emil lets out a dramatic scream in German, distracting the guards while Ray opens the hatch and descends a ladder. He lands in a narrow corridor and finds a locked door. Improvising, he climbs up some pipes, but accidentally tears off electrical cables and breaks a few pipes, causing water to leak everywhere. He eventually finds another hatch, opens it, and is stunned by what he sees. The prison is inside an oil tanker floating in the middle of the ocean. Ray quickly hides when guards approach and retreats down the hatch. The leaking water pushes him down, and he falls, landing safely in the rising floodwaters. Alarms blare as the isolation boxes begin to flood, forcing the guards to evacuate the prisoners. Ray fights against the water pressure and climbs back into his box just before the guards arrive. Meanwhile, Abigail and Hush inform Lester that Jessica's payment has been frozen. Lester, unfazed, assures them everything is fine. He's already spoken to her. However, Hobbs discovers the removed rivets in Ray's box and becomes suspicious. A phone call reveals Hobbs has been in contact with Lester all along. Lester confirms Ray's identity and tells Hobbs to keep him imprisoned permanently. Lester also demands information about Mannheim, as powerful banks worldwide want him eliminated. Hobbs agrees to target Emil if he's helping Ray. Back in the prison, Ray struggles to sleep as a guard begins a cruel game of tapping on his wall every night. In the mornings, the same guard taunts him further, pushing Ray's body and mind to their limits. Weak and barely able to move, Ray finds strength in Emil's pep talks. During one of their conversations, Ray opens up, revealing his tragic past. He was once a prosecutor, but a criminal he put behind bars escaped and murdered his family in revenge. Since then, Ray has dedicated his life to ensuring no criminal escapes again. The drawing he's been making is a memory of his child. Determined to find a way out, Ray studies the guards' routines, naming them based on their body shapes to track them better. To locate the prison's position, he needs to see the stars. Emil stabs Ray during lunch, and Ray is taken to Kyrie's office for stitches. While there, he fakes extreme pain, using the distraction to steal small items from a tray. He reminds Kyrie of his Hippocratic oath, but Kyrie stays silent. Back in the common area, Emil gives Ray a pen and a pair of glasses. Ray discreetly builds a makeshift sextant under the table, using it to calculate their location. However, Drake and Hobbs notice suspicious movements on the security cameras. Hobbs calls Ray to his office, where he reveals he knows Ray's identity and admits the prison was designed using Ray's own book. Smug, Hobbs declares he'll keep Ray locked up forever. Thinking fast, Ray lies, claiming he can get Mannheim's location from Emil. Back in the common area, Ray quickly tells Emil about his new plan. To set it in motion, Ray meets with Hobbs, feeding him a string of fake information to keep him distracted. Meanwhile, Emil approaches Javid, handing him the sextant and promising to help him escape as well, if he agrees to assist. Seeing an opportunity, Javid contacts Hobbs and informs him of an escape plan, pretending to sell out the others. In exchange, he demands permission to pray in open air, as his beliefs require. Hobbs agrees, not suspecting this is all part of Ray's plan. That night, Javid uses the sextant in his new cell to calculate the prison's location. The next day, during lunch, Javid discreetly passes his notes to Ray, combining the coordinates with details like the weather during his brief time outside, the date a new prisoner mentioned, and even the way water spirals down the toilet. Ray concludes they are near the coast of Morocco. To execute the next phase, Ray swallows clothing powder to make himself sick and gets sent to Dr. Kyrie's office. While there, he instructs Kyrie to go to Hobbs' office and read a specific page in a particular book. Kyrie hesitates, but eventually checks it, discovering the Hippocratic Oath. The message hits home, and the next day, Kyrie asks the guards to bring Ray back for another checkup. When Kyrie questions how Ray knew the exact page, Ray admits he wrote it, confirming his identity. Finally convinced, Kyrie agrees to help. Now with limited time, Ray feeds Hobbs a false lead on Mannheim's location, giving himself and the team 24 hours to escape. Javid, still playing his role, informs Hobbs of an imminent escape attempt, leading Hobbs to check the cameras. There, he spots Ray tapping on the wall of his cell, sending a Morse code message. Deciphering it reveals a fake plan about a riot in Block C during prisoner transfer. Meanwhile, Kyrie sends a coded email requesting external help. As guards are diverted to Block C, Javid sparks a riot in the common area. Chaos erupts as prisoners clash with guards. In the confusion, Ray, Emil, and Javid overpower the remaining guards in their vicinity, stealing their weapons. Smoke fills the air as gas bombs are deployed, allowing the trio to slip away unnoticed. Ray leads the team to the upper levels, explaining they only have 11 minutes to reach the rescuers arriving by helicopter. They break through a locked door and disable a security camera, which also cuts the feed to the rest of the prison's cameras. But just as they near the exit, Hobbs activates the lockdown protocol, trapping them inside. As they search for another exit, guards ambush them, opening fire. Ray, Emil, and Javid fight back, quickly taking down the attackers, but Javid is hit. Bleeding and in pain, Javid insists Emil and Ray leave him behind. Ray hesitates, but ultimately agrees, handing Javid his gun before continuing. Javid uses the last of his strength to fend off incoming guards, taking out several before he's shot by a hidden sniper. As Hobbs approaches the dying Javid, Javed recites his final prayer before succumbing. Meanwhile, Ray heads to the engine room, pursued by Drake. A tense game of cat and mouse ensues as Drake fires at Ray, who dodges and weaves through the machinery. Ray eventually surprises Drake, and a brutal hand-to-hand fight breaks out. Drake pulls out a knife, but Ray grabs nearby tools to defend himself. The fight is savage, with both men exchanging heavy blows. Ray finally gains the upper hand, pushing Drake down the stairs to his death. Ray quickly takes control of the engine room. After incapacitating the technician, he shuts off the ship's generators, plunging the prison into darkness and unlocking all doors. Emil uses the opportunity to escape, heading for the deck where a helicopter has arrived. Guards on the deck engage in a fierce gunfight with the rescuers. Emil grabs a machine gun and joins the fight, mowing down dozens of guards. Back in the engine room, Hobbs hunts for Ray, who hides in a water tank. As guards restore the ship's systems, the tank begins to fill with water. Ray nearly drowns, but is eventually flushed out into the ocean. Swimming to the surface, he spots the helicopter hovering above. Emil throws down a ladder, and Ray grabs hold, climbing up as Hobbs and his guards fire at him. Emil, injured but determined, returns fire while Ray shoots at nearby oil tanks. The resulting explosion engulfs Hobbs and his men in flames. A few hours later, the helicopter lands on a Moroccan beach where Jessica is waiting. She reveals the truth. Emil is actually Mannheim, and she is his daughter. Jessica hired Ray not just to test the prison, but to break her father out. She also exposes Lester's betrayal. He was working with Hobbs and planned to become CEO of the prison program if Ray failed. Later, Ray reunites with Abigail, who has been tracking Lester. Abigail reveals that Lester is trying to flee, but Hush intercepts him, knocking him out and locking him in a car. When Lester wakes up, he finds himself inside a shipping container on a vessel in the middle of the ocean, trapped in the very kind of prison he tried to exploit. Did you enjoy the recap? Please like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be updated next time we drop. Thanks for watching.